I'm Grace Pedersen, and I've been working with Jacob Hatcher, Jagger Doherg, and Reed Haverstraw. And we are doing our presentation on transfer students and a pamphlet to help them out.
Problem overall is 2.5 million college students transfer each year. They're thrown into life at the university and expected to assimilate, and there are not very many resources available.
The problem at Ole Miss is that there's a large transfer population, roughly around 7.56% of all the students at the university are transfer students. And Ole Miss has transfer offices that are small and they don't really have that much power. While available, information that is needed and helpful is tricky to acquire.
As we said, roughly 7-8% of the student body is made up by transfer students, either from four-year universities or community colleges. Part of an inspiration was actually my story. I transferred from Itawamba Community College to Ole Miss, and there were a lot of resources that were available, but I didn't know about, and I found there's a lot of other students that had the same issue.
So we also have three other stories from our transfer students. We have Raven, who didn't feel like her advisors were prepared to really advise the transfer students, and she almost didn't graduate from Ole Miss because she was advised she didn't have the best advice from her advisors, and her advisor technically let too many community college hours count towards graduation when they weren't eligible. So she had to take extra electives later on to graduate on time, so she wasn't advised well. And then we had Marley, who felt like she had to educate herself on what she needed for her major instead of having her advisors educate her. And her advisor thought all 86 community college hours would transfer, but actually only 60 did. And then finally we had Warren. And so Warren was told all of his community college hours would transfer, and once again, only 60 would transfer. And so he currently is unable to graduate because his residential GPA is below a 2.0. And he failed out almost 5 years ago and has returned to complete his degree. But overall, he still has that under his GPA is above a 2.0 now. And so because of this, he was told he could do the academic restart program. But after reviewing that further, he learned that this would remove his community college hours as well. So again, it's just poor advising a lot on our part at the university.
Our team member roles. Grace did the research and development, while I found most of the common Q&As asked by transfer students, and I helped with the research. Reed researched university statistics about transfer students, and Jacob and inspiration and interviewed our testimonies.
All right, so our research, we contacted student workers in the transfer office and the career center. We contacted transfer students and asked what their opinions were on it. We looked at other college transfer student protocol and tools. We looked at Vanderbilt and Georgia.
And then we also took notes of a lot of common questions that these transfer students were having, depending on what hours that the University of Mississippi would accept, where I could go to get in contact with someone, or how can my GPA affect my graduation.
So after doing all this, we went out to actual transfer students and we asked for some feedback as to what can make our what we were doing better. And so the feedback that we got was that the pamphlet was a little bit too hard to read. There was a little bit too much content, and some of the content used too much technical jargon, and it was a bit confusing for everyday students. And we learned that some of the content was irrelevant, or transfer students didn't really need to know that. They already knew that information. It was unneeded in our pamphlets.
A way we tweaked our pamphlet was changing the font of our pamphlet and increasing the font size. We made the content more specific, and we showed the students exactly what they needed to know. We revised the language and wording to be less confusing too.
And our outcomes were transfer students sampled, loved the pamphlet. It was very helpful, very useful information on the pamphlet. And even some info that was transfers who had been there for 3 or more years did not know about.
And then our students liked having an alternative program they could go to anytime with questions that could help with the culture shock of transferring. With our team targeting students in the same field of study, we were actually able to make more connections and bring more people together, which could help them feel like they fit in here.
And so some of the challenges that we faced were, our biggest one, I would say, was online learning. Because precautions were taken because of COVID-19, many of the students opted to online and virtual learning, which completely changed the world of higher education. And this made reaching out and finding our audience and testing our pamphlet much more difficult because those students weren't on campus, so we couldn't talk to them as easily as we could before. But due to both the broad and niche nature of the project, we also faced some difficulty getting the information out on campus to the students once we had already made the pamphlets.
The end.
The end.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.